I'm in the land of YouTube. Hi, everybody. Karl Sandoval here, Master Luthier. I fabricate and custom build guitars for the stars, but I just want you to keep something in mind. You are a star. You may not be famous, you may not be a millionaire, you may not drive a Maserati, a Ferrari, you may not live in some obscure hills environment someplace, or by the beach, or in the Rocky Mountains, or wherever. It really doesn't matter to me. You're all a star in my book. You're all guitar players and bass players, and I absolutely love you and would be more than happy to make any one of you a guitar. All right, on this video, what I'm going to talk about are Danelectro necks. I am not affiliated with Danelectro in any way. I'm not promoting Danelectro products. Apparently they've got some new company that's been around. It's sort of a new version, but we'll be speaking about that, some of the rockers that I built guitars for, and some of my reasons why I chose the Danelectro neck. Now, just to let you know, some of the famous rockers of my era ended up using some of my guitars. The famous Randy Rhoads was a professional guitarist that used my custom Sandoval.V. George Lynch was another who is now a famous rock star that ended up using one of my guitars with a Danelectro neck, as well as Edward Van Halen. These are the top three guitar players that I recall, but there's been others that have purchased guitars that ended up owning an original Sandoval, whether it be a Star guitar, V guitar, Stratocaster, it doesn't matter. I don't claim creation of these body styles, but what I claim is actually getting this whole history started. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Danelectro neck, and you'll hear tidbits of some of my history and do's and don'ts and whys and what happened and who played and this and that. So, all right, but before we get started, please, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. Also, if you feel inclined to do so to help support me financially, you can also subscribe to my Patreon page. And what I'll do is I'll supply links at the bottom of this video so you can accomplish this. You can reach me through Instagram. A lot of cool stuff I've posted on Instagram. I have a Facebook page for interaction. You can send me an email at karl@karlsandoval.com. And if you really feel like you want to help out Mr. Sandoval, if you'd like to give a small donation, by all means, I won't refuse it. I work hard, and I've worked my whole life to earn the status that I have now. So I'm not begging. I'm really in no need of this money, but a gift like that would really help establish some additional financial grounds of some of the things that I want to do. For an example, through my Patreon page, I'm saving up. It's getting larger. I'm getting some great people that are jumping on board. I wish you would too. And with that money, what I plan to do is buy a better video camera where I can have remote and put on a external microphone to get the sounds and the tone quality of everything up to par and to sound a little more professional. So I've got some plans coming up. So whether it be to update my website, merchandising, t-shirts, hats, and whatnot, I've been throwing around the idea of maybe a kit guitar or filming how I build my famous worldwide Sandoval.v. I'm still in the works. I would really like to get a humongous response before I attack that particular vein of my custom guitar work. But I do want to revamp and learn some better editing techniques and just really get in the groove with it all to make it more presentable for you, being viewers. And I'd like to say thank you, thank you, thank you for your support in any way. I love the good words. I love the kind words. I love the positive words. Quick note, if you're negative, if you want to put me down, if you want to just create exhausting, ridiculous clutter of words, you will be blocked immediately. I have no space and room for that. So moving on, here we go. Okay, what you see here are some examples of Danelectro necks. Now, I'm just going to speak off the top of my head. There is no format of how this is going to be presented, but take it as it comes. Here we go. Now, back in the day, and this would be when I was working with Wayne Charvel, the ultimate and great Wayne Charvel, I started to learn repairing first. I started to learn guitar maintenance. I started to learn many, many aspects of dealing with the guitar and bass. So we're talking about key, all parts installations. You know, I won't even itemize it, but all parts installation, fretwork, pickup interchanging or adding, customizing, painting, prep sanding, modifications of all sorts, dealing with stock instruments. You know them all: Fender, Rickenbacker, Gibson, Ibanez, Harmony, Silvertone, on and on and on. And, there's Paul Reed Smith, there's, all these other newcomers that have been around for a while yet, but they're newcomers in the sense that they haven't been around as long as Fender or Gibson. They're pretty much the main contributors to what everybody seems to be doing. I could be wrong. Maybe there's some others, but basically thinking, if somebody said Fender, your eyes will open up. If somebody said Gibson, your attention span will just like, yeah, what about Gibson? So, there was Vox, there was Rickenbacker, on and on and on. Ovation, to name a few. So, in dealing with all this work, being taught by Wayne Charvel, ultimately, I wanted to create my own identity guitar. I wanted to create, and I just wanted to see if I could build a guitar after all the training that I had. So it wasn't, I don't know, maybe it was mid-70s, late 70s. I got that bug. And what I remember is that I used to play a variety of different guitars. First of all, I was poor, and there was a lot of guitars I couldn't afford, especially collectible type guitars, a vintage Les Paul or a Strat. But now looking back, I think, man, if I would have just picked up a few, I would have had some gold mines. But anyway, there was a guitar that I had played, and I remember it being like a white with a copper type burst and a white vinyl stripping along the side. It was relatively light. It was a bolt-on. It was the Danelectro guitar, and it didn't have a headstock shape like any of these. It was different. I think it was 3 left, 3 right. And I remember playing the guitar, as funky as it was, in a very tremendous good way. And the looks of it was just outrageous. But I remember when I played the guitar, the neck felt really good. It's a shorter scale. It's like a 25-inch scale or thereabouts. Now, in some of these dimensions I give you, I'm not going to be precise and just like totally right on. Just bear with me. This whole discussion is about the Danelectro guitar, how I got into it, and where it went from my early beginnings. So I played this guitar, and I noticed that the action was like really, really comfortable. Now, back in the day, I wasn't a seasoned player. I'm still not a seasoned player, but I used to attempt at playing lead guitar and rhythms and funk styles of rhythms and all these different genres that are out there. Mainly rock, mainly heavy metal. But I remember playing the guitar and it felt really good. And then as I start to investigate what it was, and unknowingly it was the scale that gave you a little more slinky feel with like the slinky strings that it had on it. And so it was very easy to do lead guitar, to do your bends, to float across the top of the neck. It just felt really good. And you can take the high E string and you can bend it from its position down below and pull it way up. And it wouldn't fret out, unlike some of these other guitars. And, later on I kind of learned that, well, it's how you set up the guitar that really will, you can cure that and solve that problem. But I remember their necks being really, it was a flatter radius. I'm looking at it now and it's just amazing. I even believe it's flatter than the 16-inch radius. But it allowed for, when you cut the nut, and I would experiment, I'd cut the nut lower, I'd lower the action. And then on these guitars, they had a 2-point pivot front with a single screw at the back, and you could adjust the pitch angle of the bridge. And it was a chrome plate with a one screw screwed on piece of rosewood that the strings would go over. The strings kind of hooked on the back in some slots, and it would just ride right over the rosewood tailpiece. And so, you kind of worked with that arch and worked with the 2 pivot points to get your angle and your action really comfortable. And man, I used to really get my guitars playing nice, really nice. And so at that time, these guitars were really cheap. I remember going to the swap meet. It was actually the Azusa swap meet at the drive-in. It was outdoors. And you just kind of scanned the rows and rows of home. Now, these were real swap meets. It wasn't commercialized swap meets yet. But the only thing that was commercial was the snacks, the concession stand where you can get all your hot dogs and whatnot. But these were people that would show up with their home belongings from the attic, from the basement, from the closets, from their storerooms, wherever they kept things, and they would take it down to the swap meet and sell. And I mean cheap. We're talking cheap. Very popular back then. Swap meets are still popular nowadays, but you got to really. I think you'd probably have better luck going to a flea market as opposed to a swap meet. Swap meets have really become, in my area, I don't speak for the whole United States, but for my area, they were typically there's a lot of commercial. I mean, pots and pans and towels and blankets and socks and shoes. I don't want to sell. I can go to, I don't know, any variety of stores to look at all that stuff. I was all into garage stuff. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. Anyway, so I would find these Danelectro guitars, and I knew what the necks were all about. And some had more frets than others, and some were configured. Like you can see this headstock shape versus here's a 12 string, and but I would pick them up for like $15, $25. I remember having stacks of these guitars. Every time I saw one, I'd buy it because I liked the necks. And then as I got into guitar work, I started building my own guitars for customers locally in the San Gabriel Valley with Danelectro necks. And I would modify the headstocks to look differently. Sometimes I would leave the frets in. Sometimes I would put new frets in them. But you know, you obviously would have to work the neck, and I knew a lot to do with that, and so I would have all these necks, and I would modify them, glue them onto bodies, whether they be Strat, V, Star, you name it, your own design, and I would make these guitars, and I ended up having guitars of my own, and when I was at Charvel's, I built a black one, which I featured on another video, and it was shaped like a Danelectro guitar, and but it was solid ash, and it was the neck glued on. I contoured the back, single humbucking, single pot, and I remember putting a slider pot on it with the jack on the bottom, you know, on the side, and very unique guitar. And I ended up playing that in my band that I was in called Smokehouse, and it was really cool. So, you know, as I okay, so the guitar was built, painted, and everything was done. Woodworking, all the guitar fabrication, everything was done. Then I painted it over there at Charvel's. It was my project, and then you know I ended up leaving Charvel's, but during there was another guitar that was built there at the latter part, the Megazone, which Eddie Van Halen ended up buying for me. So buying from me, I should say. So, you know, time evolves and I'm making these guitars. When I left Charvel's in 79 and I started creating my own repair shop and custom guitars, I ended up building up clientele. George Lynch, Randy Rhoads, you know, Eddie Van Halen, all these people, Tracy G, Rusty Anderson, who ended up playing with Paul McCartney. Tracy G ended up playing with Dio. Mike Anthony, of course, that's Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen, and so these people started to play my guitars, and I built a V for George Lynch, which, man, I have no idea where it is, but if that guitar can be found, it was before Randy Rhoads' V, but other Danelectro guitars are floating out there that I had built. If you can find one, get a hold of it. It's a collector's item, big time collector's item. So George Lynch ends up with his Flying V. It was black with some tiger stripes coming in from the body style, and the V was a little horn shaped, and the headstock was a little V with a horn shape on it, kind of unique. And I don't know why he got rid of it. I don't know what happened with that guitar, but Randy Rhoads saw George playing at a club in Hollywood. It was either Gazzari's or the Whiskey, one of those places. Randy ends up playing that V, loves it. Lo and behold, he gives me a call, and he chooses me to build the Sandoval .V, which he ends up using and recording with and playing live with. And of course, we all know the rest is history. But there were rockers, maybe they didn't continue on with the guitar, but during their phases, and they all have different phases during their growth as being rock stars. And I happen to be amongst these, you know, great guitar players. You know, it's from San Gabriel Valley. This was around, you know, the mid to late 70s. And they were all introduced to the Danelectro neck by me. You see Eddie with the Strat's got a Danelectro neck on it. He ends up, there's a photo with him, and it shows my Megazone that he bought, the yellow Burst Megazone. And George Lynch, and, you know, Randy, of course, just like really just explodes this whole idea of the guitar. And the thing, I'm going to explain a little bit about these necks real quick. I don't want to go too long in this video. I have already, but like I say, they're about a 25-inch scale, and the fret radius is flat. I'll show you the fret radius so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's get some light. Okay, I'm going to turn on some light here, so bear with me. There we go. Let's get a little more light on everything. So there you can see the fret radius, and what's exposed is the two rods of metal that were glued on to the fingerboard, and which makes this neck extremely rigid. if I was to take it and hold it at the headstock and press in the center, this thing will not, it virtually is like solid. It doesn't bend. Here's another example here. You can see the radius and then the two truss. There's different models. Some of the models have just one truss rod glued in like that right here. These happen to have two, that's why I have them. And the thing that was kind of unique, this nut was screwed on with one screw, and it was aluminum, which was kind of cool. Sometimes I would use them, sometimes not. But I'm feeling this neck, and it's kind of a flat oval. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a real flat type oval, and it just fits right in your hand, and it just feels so fantastic. Now, you know, please don't go out and buy a Dan Electro neck now, because they're probably going to be about 300 to 500, maybe even more for the guitars. They're kind of nice just the way they are, but if you can find one that's a little bit of a basket case, meaning the body only, but the neck's still salvageable, nab it, get it. You'll like it. You can turn it into a guitar. That would be amazing. I can't really say that the craftsmanship was like top A1 on these guitars, but you know, a lot of people ended up using the guitar, or they own one. I've seen Jimmy Page with them. I've seen a variety of other rock stars that they'll come on with a double lipstick, the tube pickup, lipstick tube pickup, and you know, they're kind of a nostalgic, cool-looking, vintage example of early guitars, and you know, so now during my interim of working on guitars, I found a source where I was able to buy some blanks. I don't have that many of them, but it's just a slab of rosewood on this wood, and it's not really. Now let me take off this tape here so we can see. It's not really. It doesn't seem like it's maple. Let's see what lies underneath. Ah, surprise. I'm just kind of digging this up here, getting that tape off, and then what are we going to see? Well, you can see the two truss rods that are glued in, and once again, this neck here, you try to bend it. What I've discovered is that by the time you put your 8s, 9s, 10s on here, like on Randy's, I used a 10 gauge, the neck will not flex, really. If it does, it's going to flex just enough to get comfortable action. You always want to have, in some cases, I'm not going to say always, but in some cases, a slight underbow achieved is good. But typically, they stay pretty straight. And as you can see, it's not fretted, you know. But yeah, these necks were like, at that time when I really didn't know that much about guitars, they ended up being like an ultimate neck to use. Now when I build my Sandoval.Vs, I build my own neck, which is maple, not this. I have no idea what this wood is. It's probably some sort of a boxwood, or it almost looks like alder, but I don't think so. It might be a lighter grade of maple. I'm not sure. It might be some other species. But anyway, it worked. And, you know, companies back in that time when they were building guitars, starting from Leo Fender, they would make their guitars in a very, as cheaply and inexpensive way in fabrication as possible, using, you know, inexpensive woods. Of course, this is rosewood. This is probably a really good grade of rosewood. But these guitars were they didn't really, and we all know this, they didn't really par up to a Gibson or a Fender. They're like in a class of their own. This guy, I forget his name, but the guy was pretty innovative about how he built the whole guitar, the way the necks were built, the type of finish was put on. It is a very, very minimal type finish that was put on these guitars. But anyway, I mean, there's so much more to talk about, the guitar and my approaches on building. And oh, one other point of interest, the side dots, which is what I do to this day. There's 5. I don't know if you can see those, but there's 5 aluminum dots going up to the 12th fret, and that's it. So a lot of my guitars will have that. So if you ever see a guitar and then think, oh, look, you forgot to put dots past the 12th fret. No, I didn't. That's kind of a thing that I took off of, an idea that I took off the Dan Electro necks. So anyway, there you go. There's a brief little history. There's probably more I could talk about, but there's a lot of information that I may not want to give out because it's sort of like my thing and I just want to hold on to it. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Good information here. Good luck with your guitar playing. Remember, what's really important is seat time, not how much gear you have or what gear you have. I mean, yeah, that helps. Seat time in becoming a fabulous guitar player is what will make you the fabulous rock star. All right, take care and God bless. Until the next video, you guys have a great day or a great evening, whatever works for you.